Don't you dare interfere! An outsider like you? If you can't hand over your entire salary to me, then leave. What? I'm the daughter of this house, and you're just an outsider. If you agree to give me your salary every month, I might let you stay. Otherwise, leave. I was dumbfounded by the words spat out by my sister-in-law, Arlene. After 10 years of caring for my mother-in-law, Lexi, it was absurd that I, who had been working so hard, was being spoken to like this by Arlene, who did nothing but laze around and have fun. I understand, I said, believing in the bond I had with Lexi, and left the house. But Arlene's way would only work for now. My name is Crystal. I married Elliot 20 years ago, and at the same time began living with his mother, Lexi. Elliot's father passed away, and it was a filial act to not leave Lexi alone. Fortunately, Lexi was a very kind person, and we got along well. However, 10 years ago, Lexi fell ill, and since then, I have been caring for her. After starting to care for her, I left my job and became a freelancer. For me, who had lost my parents early, Lexi was like a real parent, so caring for her was not a burden. But 3 years ago, my husband Elliot passed away in an unexpected accident. It was so sudden. Lexi too became like an empty shell from the shock of losing her only son. Although Lexi's body was frail, her mind was still sharp. But since then, she started to become more absent-minded. I couldn't let her weaken further or develop dementia. I loved and admired the always bright and positive Lexi, so I thought I had to support her. Besides, sharing the grief of losing my husband with Lexi was more comforting than enduring it alone. Being in-laws made no difference. I would live here as I always did and take care of Lexi. For me, it was a simple matter, but the major problem came from the other side, my late husband's sister. Arlene, who suddenly returned home after her divorce, quickly became a source of trouble for me. Elliot used to say with a wry smile, "She's much younger and has always been spoiled." Indeed, when she came home for occasions like New Year's, she was very selfish and queen-like, self-centered. She wouldn't help with care, cooking, or household chores, but would eat and drink as she pleased without cleaning up. Getting drunk as she liked, sometimes spewing nasty words. Expecting gratitude from her was futile. Her usual behavior was the same. Despite knowing I was busy with caregiving, she would suddenly leave her child with me and go off to have fun. When she finally came to pick up the child, she would take home the food I made without permission. I mean, it's too much even for her own home, I thought. Once I gently pointed this out to her, but she snapped back. "Crystal, you're just a barren freeloader, so the least you can do is all the housework, right? It's sad for Mom not having grandchildren, so that's why I bring my kids here," she said. To say such terrible things to me, who had wanted but couldn't have children, was unbelievable. I couldn't believe she was Lexi's daughter. Realizing it was pointless to argue with her, I decided not to say anything. We didn't meet that often, and I thought I could just endure it. While I hoped to live peacefully, Arlene's visits became more frequent. "Arlene, why are you leaving your child so often and coming home late?" Lexi once asked. "I started a part-time job. As the kids need more money, you must be happy to see your grandchild," she replied. "Yes, but..." Lexi seemed unconvinced. I wondered why she would work until night while her child was still young. Not out of financial need, I thought, but kept silent. Then, one day, as usual, Arlene came unannounced. I thought she had come to leave her child again, but she was alone, dragging a large travel trunk. "I got divorced, so I'll be living here from now on," suddenly she declared. Lexi and I were shocked and asked what she meant. Turning to Lexi with a tearful expression, she began to speak. She had been enduring violence from her husband for a long time and decided to divorce, unable to bear it any longer. She wanted to bring the child too, but her husband wouldn't allow it, so she left the house under the condition of divorce. I stood there, mouth agape. I had met Erlene's husband a few times, and he seemed gentle and kind, not at all like the person she described. In fact, it was Erlene who often yelled at her husband and children unreasonably. I doubted Erlene's story, but Lexi, perhaps believing her daughter's words, agreed to let her stay. Lexi apologized to me, but as a mother, she couldn't ignore her daughter being divorced and kicked out. But living with Erlene? Thank you, Crystal! That's the situation, so I'm counting on you. Erlene, who was supposed to be crying, grinned with eyes not even slightly damp. It was all an act, wasn't it? Thus began life under one roof with the returned Erlene, who continued to do nothing. She didn't care for her own mother, let alone cook, do laundry, or clean. And yet, she kept giving orders. Does she think I'm her servant? Hey, make something more substantial. What's with this bland meat-only meal? Are you messing with me? This meal is low in salt, considering Lexi's health. Erlene, why don't you cook what you like? What? Don't tell me what to do. You're just a freeloader. Freeloader? Anyway, my brother is dead, and you're practically a stranger now. Why are you still living in this house? Who would care for Lexi if I weren't here? If it wasn't for that job, I would have kicked you out long ago. The quiet days of living with Lexi seemed like a distant past. Day by day, my stress grew, but I made sure Lexi didn't notice. One day, Lexi said, Crystal, there's a place I want to go. It's tough with the wheelchair, but could you come with me? Of course. Where to? Shall we stop by that cafe we used to go to? Lexi and I had a favorite cafe nearby since we were married. We often went there when Lexi was healthier. That sounds good. I have something important to talk to you about. Really? A month later, Erlene returned from outside, not even saying hello. Hey, are you working right now? Yes, I'm taking on jobs I can do from home. I want to prioritize Lexi's care, so I don't have as much time as before. So you're getting paid? It's not a salary since I'm not employed, but I get paid for the work I do. Then give me all your earnings. What? I was baffled by Erlene's words. Because it's ridiculous to let a stranger live here for free. You should pay rent and utilities. Rent? I've been living here since I got married. We paid for the remodeling, and I've been covering all utilities. But the land and house belong to us. Now that my brother is gone, I can say whatever I want. What do you mean? I'm just stating facts. Maybe you should find a job if you're not going to take care of Lexi. I couldn't help but retort. Frustrated. Ha! What right does a stranger have to say anything? Caring for mom is just a performance. There's no inheritance for you, a stranger. Don't talk nonsense. As her daughter, don't you want to care for her and worry about her? Ugh, you're so annoying. Don't meddle, an outsider like you. If you can't hand over your entire salary to me, then leave. What? Listen! I'm the daughter of this house, and you're just an outsider. If you agree to give me your salary every month, I might let you stay. Otherwise, leave. I was dumbfounded by Erlene's words. For the past 10 years, I was the one who cared for Lexi, who couldn't move freely, and who always stayed by her side when her son died. I wanted to scream, I'm more of a daughter than you are, despite not being related by blood. You have the nerve to say such horrible things when you've made me do all the housework. My voice trembled with anger, but Erlene just laughed at me scornfully. Isn't it natural to get paid for letting someone who's not even family live in the house? Saying it like you're doing me a favor. You must be after the inheritance. Alright, if that's how it is, I'll leave. Huh, okay. So you can't pay me the salary, huh? What about mom's care? Promise me you'll take care of that properly. Yeah, I got it. Stop nagging. You know the helper you've been using, right? Arrange for them to come every day, and make sure you handle the payment. I couldn't believe it. She had no intention of taking care of her mother herself. I couldn't leave my mother with someone like that. I immediately called a care manager I knew. A few days later, I moved out, but Arlene was hardly ever home, always out and about. I coordinated with the care manager and visited Lexi when Arlene was absent. "I'm so sorry, Crystal. I never thought she'd kick you out." "I told her to take it back, but she wouldn't listen." "Lexi, don't worry about it. Just call me if you need anything." Then, suddenly, the end came. Lexi was stable during the day, but had an attack of her chronic illness in the evening. I rushed to the hospital when the care manager informed me, but Arlene was nowhere to be seen. A few hours after being admitted, the doctors did all they could, but Lexi passed away. I couldn't say goodbye or thank her. I couldn't stop crying. A few days after holding Lexi's funeral and saying goodbye, all the relatives gathered at the house where only Arlene now lived. It seemed Lexi had requested that everyone be present when her will was read. Lexi's lawyer looked over everyone gathered. "Before I read the will, please listen to a voice recording that Lexi left as her final wish." Lexi's voice played. Everyone listened intently. "Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the friendships we had during my life. Now I will leave my will regarding my estate. It's not a large amount, but I wanted no troubles, so I requested all my relatives to be present. To my daughter Arlene, I leave $100,000. She did nothing to help care for her parent, but she's divorced with a young child. I'm leaving her this amount, which is her legal share, hoping she'll use it for alimony and for the child." "What? Legal share? It's not the full amount?" Arlene exclaimed loudly, and the relatives began to murmur. "Arlene is divorced? She hasn't shown her face at family gatherings in years. Alimony? She doesn't have custody of her child? Wasn't it Elliot's wife who took care of everything? She stayed and cared even after he died." Arlene's face turned red, and her clenched fist trembled. "What do you mean?" Lexi's voice continued, oblivious to Arlene's anger. "Some of you may be surprised to hear of Arlene's divorce. The reason was her infidelity." "What?" The relatives gasped together, and Arlene's face changed color. "Why would you mention that? Instead of protecting her family by taking care of me, she neglected her child and ran around with her lover. Her husband caught her and divorced her, taking custody. Honestly, I didn't want to leave Arlene a single dollar, but she's always been greedy and would claim her rights. So, to not trouble the other heirs, I'm only leaving her half of the legal inheritance. Please use it properly to pay the alimony and for the benefits of the grandchild." While surprised by the content, hearing Lexi's voice was comforting to me. "And to you, Crystal, thank you for marrying my son, and for everything you've done since. I loved your honesty and kindness. It must have been hardest on you when Elliot died so young, but you bravely stayed by my side and took care of me. No amount of gratitude is enough." Tears overflowed from my eyes at Lexi's words. I know what it's like to take care of a parent, and caregiving is truly a tough task. You did it without a single complaint, without accepting any money, and always with a smile. Crystal, I am leaving you the same amount of $100,000 as my daughter, as well as our house and land. You are free to sell or rent the house, but I'd be happy if you remember the days we spent together here. Lexi, I couldn't take it anymore. I started crying like a child. I could never be grateful enough. She treated me like her real mother, having lost my own parents early. To all my relatives, thank you for everything. My last wish is for you to watch over my son's widow, Crystal, who will be alone now, and ensure she lives a bright and strong life. That's all." All I could hear around me were sobs. I couldn't stop my own tears either. Only Arlene was screaming loudly in such a situation. This is ridiculous. Such a will is invalid. Are you some kind of fake lawyer? If you have doubts, we can meet in court. I'll appear as the opposing lawyer, and you'll see I'm legitimate. That woman was just my brother's wife, a stranger. I'm the real daughter. It's absurd. She gets the same amount and the house too. Arlene, who didn't even attend Lexi's last moments, didn't shed a tear, only frantic now. Unforgivable, this hellish creature. I wiped my tears and stood up. Arlene, Mom might have been physically disabled, but she thought more of her family than anyone. This will is the result of that. You knew about it. That's why you played dumb and left. I'm hearing about the will for the first time now. How did Mom even know about my relationships? Mom was worried when you started leaving your child frequently. That's why she contacted your ex-husband after your divorce. What? Then I met and talked with him. Lexi couldn't go out alone. What? Your husband tried to reconcile many times despite your repeated infidelities. He showed me the evidence, but the kind husband had no intention to demand alimony. Yet Lexi suggested he should. She said the 3-year statute of limitations from the divorce would soon be up. No, wait, that's a lie! Everyone at the scene looked at Arlene with contempt. Neglecting her child and husband for affairs? Lexi probably didn't even want to leave her a cent. Having a rightful heir like this can be troublesome. It must be for the grandchild's sake. She was kind. The relatives commented, all casting stern looks at Arlene. Also, about my inheritance, you seem unhappy, but I was legally adopted by Mom. I'm Lexi's child in the eyes of the law. What? I'm a legal heir, just like you. What? Arlene turned pale, but she kept on ranting. That's impossible! I didn't approve of that. It's not allowed without the daughter's consent. No consent needed for an adoption. What? Exactly, the lawyer added. So, I may have been driven out of the house, but things have changed. Since I'm inheriting the house, could you pack your things and leave soon? Arlene collapsed on the spot and didn't move. There was applause from the relatives who heard everything. Some had tears in their eyes. It's good that you, who cared for Lexi, are rewarded. You were like a real daughter. If you have any trouble, let us know. I bowed deeply. Thank you. Lexi probably gathered everyone to make sure I wouldn't be misunderstood or rumored about after inheriting the estate. After everything was made public and she lost the trust of the relatives, Arlene was left without anyone speaking to her. She later left the house in a huff, reportedly paying alimony to her ex-husband from her inheritance, but her life afterward seemed difficult. Yet, the fact that tens of thousands of dollars remained for Arlene, who had no savings or job, speaks volumes about Lexi's generosity. Ideally, she should use the money for her child and start working hard, but people like her rarely change. She'll probably run out of money soon. As for me, I'm now living leisurely, sorting through the belongings in my old home. The house is too big for one person, and the property taxes are quite high. I need to think about what to do. The lawyer gave me the recording of Lexi reading her will, saying Lexi had asked for me to have it. Just remembering, thank you for everything. I loved your honesty and kindness. Makes me tear up. I wonder if I was able to properly express my gratitude to Lexi. I never thought of it as caregiving, but as something natural, being together all the time. Could my feelings have been conveyed through that? Maybe the contents of the will are Lexi's answer. I wiped my tears. It's still too soon. Staying in the house brings waves of sadness. If I keep crying, I'll worry my husband and Lexi above. Alright, today I'll go to that cafe for the first time in a while. I said it out loud. It seems it will take a bit more time before I can let go of this house, filled with memories of my husband and Lexi.